we will get started with today's Tuesday Talks. I am Jessica Rosenblatt. I am the Executive Director of the Ohio Arts Professionals Network. I am so glad that you all are able to join us for today's discussion with the Ohio Arts Council. I want to just give a quick introduction on who the Ohio Arts Council is for those of you who may not know. Their mission as the Ohio Arts Council is a state agency that funds and supports quality arts experiences to strengthen Ohio communities culturally, educationally, and economically. Their history, they were created in 1965, and their goal is to foster and encourage the development of the arts and assist the preservation of the Ohio's cultural heritage. Their funding, they work directly with the Ohio legislature and the National Endowment for the Arts, and the OAC provides financial assistance to artists and arts organizations across Ohio. And today we have the lovely Brianna Dance and Chaz O'Neill. Brianna is the organizational programs coordinator, and Chaz is the artists programs and percent for art coordinator. They're going to take you along just what they do, what kind of grants they have available, what they're looking for in your grant submissions, and then we will open this up to Q&A at the end. If you have a question while they are presenting, please feel free to pop it in the chat so we don't miss it. And for anybody who is not muted, just make sure you have muted yourself if you don't mind. And this is being recorded, so we will put the recording up probably by tomorrow, and Brianna will gladly send out her slides along with the recording when those are ready. So I'm going to hand the baton over to Brianna and Chaz. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for that wonderful introduction. So if you just, I'm going to take a moment and just share my screen with you. So let me get that going. Give me a thumbs up to let me know it's all there. Thumbs up. Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you again to Jessica and to OAPN for the invitation. We are very happy to be here. As Jessica said, I'm Brianna Dance, and I coordinate grants for organizations at the Ohio Arts Council. But you'll also hear from my colleague Chaz O'Neill, who coordinates the grants for artists. We're going to share funding opportunities available through the Ohio Arts Council and a few grant writing best practices. And we have a lot to cover. So I'm going to move quickly and start by sharing a little bit about the OAC. So we are a state agency, and as Jessica did a great job of sharing our mission, we are predominantly a grant maker in that majority of our budget is awarded out in grants. So we receive funding from the state legislature, and thanks to the governor and those state lawmakers, we have received record-setting state appropriations for the past few biennia. In the current biennium, $51 million was appropriated to the Ohio Arts Council, and that along with $2.5 million of federal funding from the National Endowment for the Arts made 2,600 grants awards possible in this current year. Okay, so here's an overview of all of the 14 grant programs that we offer. I'm going to send a link here in the chat that gives you that provides an overview of all of these grants, so that way you don't have to feverishly take notes or anything like that. All the information's there that you can print out and save and reference. But I will kind of walk you through it. So we like to color coordinate based on the audience served. And so in green, you'll see grants available to organizations. These eligible groups can be nonprofits, it can be government entities, it can also be educational organizations like schools and universities, but they have to have a commitment to serving the wider community beyond just their students. In purple, you'll see grants specifically for arts education activities, and 2 of the 3 listed grants are exclusively for pre-K through 12 schools. And then in yellow are our grants for artists. So each category has a dedicated team that helps coordinate these grants. I work specifically with our operating and project support grants, and Chaz covers the ones, our grants for individual artists. Today, we are just going to focus on those categories since that seems to be the most relevant to our audience today. But if you're interested in learning more about our arts learning grants, we're happy to put you in touch with the team that coordinates those. All right, so let's start with our grants for organizations. But I do not work alone. We divide the state into 3 regions with a designated grants coordinator. So it was wonderful to hear where everybody was coming from because now you're going to learn who is your contact here at the OAC if you represent an organization. So I work with those in Central and Southeast Ohio. My colleague Patrick Rohrenbeck works with the Northeast region, and Jim Sakosh covers the Western and North Central region. We're here to serve as your main contact, so don't be a stranger if you plan on seeking funding or if you're unsure of where to start or you have questions along the way. We are very happy to assist. All right, so here's an overview of our 5 project support opportunities. So let's dig right into them. And I'm going to start with my one that I encourage all organizations to apply to, especially as a first-time applicant, and that is our Art Start Grant program. So it offers general project support, so it can fund any type of program or activity or event that engages the public in arts or culture. So we see a wide range of projects that come through this program. We've had everything from murals to festivals. We've had theater productions, concert series, summer camps, dance classes. The list goes on and on. April 1st is the annual deadline, and I should note that with most of the deadlines that I'm mentioning today, it's to fund activities that are occurring within our upcoming fiscal year, which starts July 1. In Art Start, there's a $5,000 maximum request and a one-to-one cash match requirement, which just means that for every dollar you request from the Ohio Arts Council, another dollar needs to come from another source to support that same project. And it can be anticipated at the time that you apply in the application. It doesn't need to be confirmed. All right. So now if your organization is trying something entirely new and breaking the mold of what it has historically done, that's where Arts Next comes into play. So Arts Next is designed to fund innovative projects, and that's the key word. Applicants have to make a strong case as to why their project is significantly innovative. So just to share a quick example of an Arts Next funded project, because that's the program where you say, what kind of projects come in through that grant program? So we had a printmaking organization invent an environmentally friendly printing process, and they've had visiting artists come from all over the world, come to learn their green methods to then adopt in their print shops. Um, but we also recognize that innovation can also be relative. You know, what's innovative in one community could be entirely different from another. So, to give an example of this, we had a community art center work with their city council to reverse a citywide ban on public art. And they created their first community mural on the side of a building. So, in this case, while murals are not necessarily innovative in and of themselves, this particular one was because it was really disrupting the community's previous policies and launching the beginning of a creative placemaking effort. Arts Next has an annual deadline of March 1st, and applicants can request up to $25,000 with a match. Now, although the deadline just happened last week, I hope you keep this opportunity in mind and keep it on your radar, you know, when that big, bold, groundbreaking project comes along. All right, but you haven't missed your opportunity for Arts Rise funding. In fact, we just started accepting applications earlier this month for this grant program. Arts Rise supports organizations that are representative of or projects that are expanding access with historically underrepresented population. And these groups can include, you know, people with disabilities, it could be older adults, Appalachians, veterans, people of color, you know, the list goes on. To share a few examples of Arts Rise funded projects, we had an arts council that presented a longstanding community talent show every year. This was their annual tradition. It was a big community event, and they were successful at receiving Arts Rise funding to start a partnership with their county board of developmental disabilities to include their clients in that talent show by featuring an exhibition of their artwork for the talent show. Another example is we had a convention and visitors bureau in an Appalachian county receive ArtsRise funding to support their annual festival that celebrated their Appalachian heritage. In ArtsRise, applicants can request up to $5,000, and the match requirement is waived for organizations with annual arts budgets below $100,000. The nice thing about this program, another nice thing, is that we accept applications on a rolling basis. So I mentioned we just opened applications earlier this month. We'll accept them through August or until funds are expended, whichever occurs first. But the applicant must submit your application at least 90 days prior to your proposed activity date. All right, we all know that Ohio is home to a lot of talented performers, and I know I'm talking to an audience that knows this more than anyone. Ohio Artists on Tour is our way of encouraging presenters to tap into our state's talent when they book performing artists. How do we do that? Well, the OAC will fund 1/3 of the fees for those artists or ensembles who currently reside in Ohio, and this funding is specifically for presenters. So if you host a performing art series or run a festival with live entertainment or have musicians play at your farmer's market, this program can help pay a portion of your artist fees. And the application process is very simple. Just tell us who, when, and how much, and upload the executed contract by the May 15th deadline. And unlike most of our other grants, there is not a panel process with this request. Rather, this funding is contingent on your organization being awarded another grant that did go through a panel process. All the grants I've talked about so far on this webinar goes through a public panel process, so all of those will qualify, but you'll see a full list of all of the qualifying grants in the program guidelines. So I encourage you to check that out. This is a really great opportunity to get supplemental funding for those Ohio-based artists or ensembles. Okay, so all of the project support programs that I've mentioned so far have been focused on programming requests, but we also understand the need for staff and board to engage in activities that enhance or strengthen their knowledge or skills, and that's where capacity building comes into play. So that could be doing a professional development or intending a professional development, like attending a national conference, or hiring a consultant to facilitate the development of a plan. It could be a strategic plan, a succession plan, a disaster preparedness plan, or it could be hiring a consultant to lead research, like conducting a feasibility study or evaluating a program. The key thing to keep in mind is with capacity building, the funding can only be used towards that outside expertise provider. So you can request up to $5,000 in support of those outside fees, so the consultant costs or the conference registration fees and related costs. For capacity building, there's 2 deadlines to apply. The first is May 1st, and the second opportunity is November 1st. Okay, so that does it for project support grants. I want to end my portion with our most coveted category of funding, and that's our operating support. So this is the funding that can go towards your operating budget and can cover all those non-glamorous expenses like utilities, insurance, payroll, or it could be used to support your programming costs as well. We have 2 operating support programs. One of them is specifically geared at supporting our statewide art service organizations, and there are very few of those in the state. Right now, we have 5 grantees in the program, OAPN being one of them. So majority of receive operating support through what we call our sustainability grant program, where currently there's 450 grantees. So sustainability offers a 4-year grant, but to show us that you can successfully manage that long-term support, you must have demonstrated that you've successfully managed past awards. So you do have to have a funding history in order to apply, more specifically 2 grants within the last 4 years. And in terms of the award amount, it varies depending on the size of your organization. So for small organizations, which we define as having an average arts programming budget below $50,000, they can request up to $10,000 per year. For mid-sized and large organizations, there's not a funding request. The award amount is based on the organization's budget. The deadline is February 1st every 2 years. So we just had our deadline last month. So the next opportunity to apply will be in 2027. But that's perfect. If you're new to the OAC, because now you know the project support grants that you can apply to this year and next to gain that funding history to become eligible to apply for operating support. Um, and that does it. That covers the organizational grant. So I am going to hand it off to Chaz to talk about our artist programs.
Yeah. Thank you, Brianna. That was certainly a lot of information, and you deserve a much needed break. Next is my turn to talk about grants. Hello, I am Chaz O'Neill, and I am one half of the Individual Artist Office here at the Ohio Arts Council. And just so you know, the OAC offers a variety of funding for individual artists. These awards recognize excellence, preserve cultural traditions, and offer professional development. And just so you know, I don't work alone either. Our individual artist director is Kathy Signorino, and her contact information is on the screen. If you have any questions about the programs that I'm about to cover, you can reach out to either of us. Kathy and I work hand in hand on these programs, and we service the state's Percent for Art program as well. And Kathy and I serve all artists from across the state. So, we oversee 4 grant programs. I realize that there may be people who are arts administrators or arts educators in the audience today, but this may be helpful information if you know of any individual artists that you work with in your communities and you feel that they might be good candidates for these grants. While grant funding for individuals cannot directly benefit an organization or school that is receiving OAC funding, like the grants that Brianna just mentioned, but just having that individual being able to carry out their own artistic goals helps everyone in your communities. And just a quick eligibility check. Individual artists cannot be students enrolled in any degree or certificate granting program at the time of application, and they cannot become a student during the grant period if awarded. They must have been a resident of the state 1 year prior to the application deadline and must remain a resident of the state during the grant period if awarded. Individual artists do not need cash matches. Individual artist grants are considered earned income and are paid to the social security number of the individual. So let's jump into these. Our most well-known program is the Individual Excellence Awards. These are merit awards for past artistic work. So therefore, the applicant does not apply with the request or a project proposal. They're only submitting a portfolio of past work and a 500-word anonymous artist statement. We do alternate the years that we offered this award. In the odd-numbered years, we offered this award in the writing disciplines, music composition, and choreography. In the even-numbered years, we offered the Excellence Awards in the 7 visual arts categories. Every year we give 75 $5,000 awards, and these are extremely competitive. On average, every year we receive about 500 applications. The review process is anonymous. The out-of-state panelists that we contract to review and score these portfolios will not see the applicant's name or know anything about the applicant's background, so it's really just about the work. What's great about these merit awards is that the artists can do whatever they want with the funds. They just can't go back to school or pay off student debt with the funds. They can travel, they can buy equipment, pay for supplies, pay for studio rent, go on residencies. They can even pay for childcare so they can go spend time in their studio, or they can put the money away for a rainy day. Applications for this program open on June 1st of every year, and the deadline is always September 1st. Applicants also can apply as a collaboration if there are 2 artists who have ownership over the creative product. Applicants can only submit 1 application per cycle, with the exception of this coming year, where an applicant can submit a manuscript in the criticism category plus another discipline. So you could submit in criticism plus poetry, fiction, nonfiction, music composition, or choreography. Award winners must sit out 1 cycle before they can apply again with a new body of work. Award winners are also ineligible for the next 2 grant programs I'm going to discuss for the next 5 years, and that would be Artist Opportunities and the Artists with Disabilities Access Program. So, speaking of Artist Opportunities, This is our newest grant program. Artist Opportunities. Before this program came to be, we really didn't have an open project support grant for individuals across the state, other than the Artists with Disabilities Access Program, or ADAP, which was a smaller percentage of the population. And the Excellence Awards is really highly competitive, and it's not based on future projects. You really had to live in one of the metro areas or with a large local arts council to get project support for individual artists. So if you live in a rural community, you now have access to project support. So anyway, this program is designed to help artists pursue professional development opportunities, carry out community-based projects, purchase supplies, equipment, and pay for collaborators to carry out projects. There are 2 levels that one could apply at. There's a $500 emerging artist level, which is for your hobbyist or maybe someone who's just out of school. And then there's a professional artist level where they can request up to $2,500. Professional artist is someone who has maybe an established degree, who has an experience or working and teaching in the field. They maybe make some kind of living off their art or selling their art. And these reviews are not anonymous, like the Excellence Awards. The applicants will be submitting resumes, bios, and artist statements, hyperlinks to past artistic work samples, project timelines, and the detailed budget. The applications are due May 1st of every year, but the proposed projects can only take place during the time of November 1st of that year through June 30th of the following year. This program has been competitive as well. In the 2 years that we've had this program, we've seen an average of 230 applications submitted, and we've funded about 60 to 70 each year, depending on the grant budget and the requests that come through for the high scoring applications. The next one is our third program, which is near and dear to the heart of the OAC. That is the Artists with Disabilities Access Program grant, or ADAP. We actually modeled the previous grant, Artist Opportunities, after this program, but there are some differences. One, the individual must have a disability in order to be eligible, and we do not ask for proof of a disability in any way. It carries the same deadline, May 1st, as Artist Opportunities, but these artists can carry out the proposed projects a little sooner, starting on July 1st. They will typically get their funds faster in about August as opposed to November. Both ADAP and Artist Opportunities have a $1,500 limit on capital expenses, such as computers, equipment, cameras, musical instruments. This also has a $500 emerging artist level and a $2,500 professional artist level. Artists do self-identify in the application, but we are here to help if they need help identifying if they're emerging or professional. The scoring threshold is typically more lenient in the emerging artist level, and this program is less competitive than the Artist Opportunities, and we have historically funded a higher percentage of these applications. You may also see on the screen that there is a November 1st deadline as well. That is if there is funding left over after the May deadline. So if you have artists with a disability in your community and they need further assistance with their application, they can always reach out to us or contact me or Kathy or one of our state organizations called Art Possible Ohio. They serve artists with disabilities across the state, and they do awesome programming, and they really help a lot of artists apply to this grant program in particular. All right, and the Traditional Arts Apprenticeship, our fourth grant program. This is a grant program to support mentor artists to carry out apprenticeships with a dedicated apprentice or apprentices. They can have up to 2 apprentices. These are to support the folk and traditional art forms, trades, not art forms that are particularly learned in a college setting. Rather, those art forms, if not passed from person to person, would be lost in time. Good examples would be African drum making, Navajo basket or blanket weaving, Irish harp, Chinese zither. We also see a lot of Asian dance forms come through, and blacksmithing and brain hide tanning as well. The mentor must have learned their art form from another mentor or family member. The application deadline is April 1st, which is coming up soon. So for apprenticeships, that will take place July 1st through June 30th. The mentor and the apprentice work together a minimum of 50 hours over the course of a year, and the $4,000 request is really an honorarium to the mentor artist. They can use the funds to pay for supplies, space rental for rehearsal, or anything they might need to carry out the learning, but no funds are really transferred to the apprentice. The apprentice is really only getting the knowledge in the end. And usually there is some kind of public performance, an exhibition, or a showcase at the end of the apprenticeship. So if you know of any tradesmen, folk artists, or ethnic practitioners in your community, please have them consider applying to this grant program so they can keep their art forms alive. This program usually sees about 20 to 25 applications per year, and we fund most of them, given that they met the scoring criteria threshold. And as Brianna will mention in a little bit, really thoroughly read those grant program guidelines for all of our grant programs to see what the review criteria the panel is scoring your proposals on. You want to ensure that you get the highest score possible, and so you get funding. We're here to help too, so if you have any draft applications in the ARTI system, we'd be happy to take a look to make sure your application is in the best shape so it can be before the deadline. All right, that covers the grant programs. Next, I'm going to talk about some resources. We in the Individual Artist Office also oversee our programs and resources for individuals. The first one listed on your screen is one of my favorite things about my job, is the Ohio Artist Registry. This is a free online platform opportunity for artists to share their work, connect with the creative community, and establish an online presence. The Ohio Artist Registry encourages artists working in all art forms throughout Ohio and beyond to create a public profile on our site, so it allows them to promote their work. Being listed on the OAR, the Ohio Artist Registry, provides artists with new opportunities to share their work with clients and galleries and patrons and audiences. We also host a visual arts juried exhibition for those who are on the registry. We host it with our partners at the downtown Columbus Metropolitan Library, and that's held in the formerly named Carnegie Gallery. And that exhibition call is actually currently open. So we give $500, so free $500 Jurors Choice Awards during that exhibition. So if you want any information on that, please contact me. Kathy and I also oversee the Ohio Heritage Fellowship Award, and this is a lifetime achievement award that recognizes folk and traditional artists who reflect Ohio's living cultural heritage. These $5,000 awards recognize the efforts that are of these artists who are deeply embedded in their cultural communities. The fellowship celebrates the vitality of their state's stake in the traditional arts, and they support cultural diversity and strengthen in our state's character. Once the awards are announced, there's usually a public ceremony for the recipient of their choosing, and then a feature is actually done on them with a PBS affiliate, Think TV in Dayton. And you can find all the past recipients and their videos on our website. We also handle the Ohio Poet Laureate program, and the Ohio Poet Laureate encourages a variety of constituencies, enriching lives by residents by sharing and promoting poetry throughout the public appearances, readings, workshops, and through digital and social media. And another big role at the agency that Kathy and I oversee is the Ohio Percent for Art program. Ohio's Percent for Art program is legislation that became law in 1990, and this law provides funds for the acquisition, commissioning, and installation of public works for new or renovated buildings with state appropriated funds. All right, we're just going to quickly talk about some other things for the public for you. The OAC has a variety of things that we do to engage with the community. We have a webinar series on our website, and we have a YouTube channel that you can find as well and subscribe to. The OAC facilitates free webinars on a variety of topics, including OAC grant programs, social media and marketing, best practices, business principles for artists and organizations, and much, much more. The Governor's Awards, which is coming up, and registration is currently open. celebrating artistic excellence in 7 categories, including individual artists, organizations, art patrons, business supporters, and these occurred in the this will occur in the 2025 and 2027 respectively, and in the years in between, the OEC will host the Arts Impact Ohio Conference. And this is a biennial conference where professional development and for arts administrators and arts educators, individual artists can benefit. And yeah, this occurs in the even number of years now. So we hope to see you then at the next one. So more information about these can be found on our website under our community engagement tab. And we also have a Ohio Arts Council Rife Gallery. This showcases works from Ohio artists and the collections of the State Museum and Galleries through exhibitions that rotate quarterly. Each exhibition features additional programming such as artist talks, virtual scavenger hunts, and workshops, and those are held in person or virtually. The gallery is free and open to the public, and it's located in the lobby area of the Vern Rife Center in downtown Columbus. And the hours are noon to 5, Tuesday through Friday. You can find more information about that on our websites. All right. I think I'm complete there. Brianna, does that sound all good? Are you ready to talk about Artie?
Sounds great. Thank you,
All right.
Chaz.
Thank you.
So now you know what to apply to. Here is how. So all of our grant applications are available online and submitted through our ARTI system. So you'll hear that name a lot. But the first step is to register to get started. And speaking of other first steps, I'm going to just spend a quick minute walking you through our grant process, and I'm going to break it down into 3 phases so that you know we can best prepare you. So it all starts with the guidelines. So always review the guidelines first. So each grant program has guidelines that provide an overview about the program, the eligibility information, as well as project examples. If you're not sure if your funding need is a fit or if you're unsure of where to apply, just contact our staff. We know how much time goes into preparing an application, so that's why we encourage all of our applicants to talk with the grants coordinator prior to applying so that we can confirm eligibility and connect you with the grant program that's the most appropriate fit. From there, you can then create or update your ARTI profile and get started on an application. Do keep in mind that your profile must be complete at the time that you submit an application, so make sure to work on that while preparing your proposal. And side note, applicants have the option to request feedback on a draft of the application. Chaz mentioned it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But once your application is complete, go ahead and submit, ideally ahead of the deadline, and then that will lead us to our next phase, which is the review phase. So our staff reviews all the applications for eligibility. If we noticed any issues, we'll reach out to you for clarification or additional action. Then all of the eligible applications are sent to panelists for their review and scoring. And the panels are open to the public. They're held over Zoom. So we encourage our applicants to listen to their panel review. Within a week after that panel, application scores are released, so you'll know how well you fared, but you won't officially know until our board meets to review and approve those funding recommendations, since they're the only authorized body to make funding decisions. If you're awarded funding, then let's hope you are. Here's what happens next. You'll sign a grant agreement, and most of our grantees will receive, or they can request, a portion of their award at that time. And of course, we're proud to support your work, so we require that our grantees credit our funding and publicize their award. And then you're ready to carry out the project. So if anything changes, keep us apprised. After your project's complete, you'll submit a final report in ARTI, and then we'll issue out any remaining balance on your award at that time. And then that's the full full grant life cycle, excuse me. Now switching gears, I'm going to hop into grant writing best practices on the next slide, but I first want to highlight the best practice of accessibility first, which is very important to the OAC. And when I talk about accessibility, I mean creating access to people with disabilities. 1 in every 3 to 4 people in Ohio have a disability. We want all Ohioans to be able to engage in the arts. These are public dollars, and we don't want a barrier to prevent or discourage their involvement. So we we encourage our applicants to consider how they can provide accommodations to ensure people with disabilities can take part. And it's more than just having a venue with ramps and accessible parking. It could be hiring an ASL interpreter or live streaming your event, or offering touch tours. Of course, in the arts, we're known for our creativity. So I encourage you to ideate some solutions so that we can all engage with the arts. All right. Okay, I'm going to take a quick breath because we've covered a lot. But hopefully you found something that clicks with your work or your plans. We know that most applicants are not professional grant writers. So we want to touch on some grant writing 101 tips. And there's a few slight differences between artists and organizations in the application process. So I'll start with the tips for organizations, which some are relevant to artists as well. And then Chaz will dive into the more artist specific advice. But first and foremost, I know we keep reiterating this, but it's important. Read the guidelines very carefully. They provide all the details you need to know about the program, but as Chaz mentioned earlier, it also includes the exact review criteria that we give to panelists to score your application. So, and if you pay attention, you'll notice that the application narrative questions are just that review criteria posed in question form. So we're giving you the answers to the test up front. So it's very critical to address every question that's asked. The second best practice is to collaborate with a committee on your program and your budget. Now, calling it a committee may sound more formal than it needs to be, but just have a team of folks that bring their area of expertise to the table. So your planning process should be inclusive with a wide range of voices, ideally including the community that you plan to serve. As a result, your proposal will be more well-rounded, it'll be more well thought out, with all those perspectives in mind. And also your budget is just as important as your narrative. It will give the panel important information about your size and scope of your activities. So present a realistic budget that includes all the related expenses and make sure it aligns with the activities described in your narrative. Next, to provide a clear, detailed narrative about your project. These grant applications are reviewed by people working in the arts from all over the state or out of the state, and so a few grant programs Chaz mentioned. So it is critical to approach your application with the assumption that the panelists do not have any knowledge of you, your organization, or your community. So treat your application as an introduction to a stranger and summarize the who, what, where, when, why, all of that in the summary section. Each application has a summary section. Make sure to do that, and that will set the stage for the rest of your grant proposal. Now, another part of your application is your support materials. So the application in ARDI does provide a list of strongly encouraged or required, in some cases, support materials for you to consider. If any of those are relevant to your proposed activities, make sure to include them. Panelists are typically given, on average, around 40-ish applications to review and score. So the easier you make it for them to find the information, the better. So make sure you label your files appropriately. On the flip side, I do want to warn you, be sure not to overwhelm them with too many files. Panelists will not have time to read every word and every piece of support material. So if there's critical information that the panel should absolutely know, include it in your application narrative instead of it being hidden in a support material. Of course, if you're unsure of anything, we always say contact our staff with questions. We are here to help. And one of the ways that we help is by reviewing draft applications. We've kind of pointed at it or hinted at it here throughout this webinar, but applicants can request feedback on an application draft where we, the coordinators, will review your proposal and provide suggestions based on our experience of listening to past panels. That option is available in ARDI up until 2 weeks before the deadline, so be sure to request feedback on your draft sooner than later. But if you do miss that window, it is okay. You have not lost your support line. We're available right up until the deadline day if you have any specific questions. And last but not least, proofread. Typos are often distracting to panelists, and even better if you can get someone outside your organization to proofread get someone outside your organization who's unfamiliar with your work, and then that way it can kind of mimic that grant reviewer perspective, and of course they can help catch those typos along the way too. Chaz, what else can you add for artists?
Yeah, you covered it pretty thoroughly, but I ditto all that, Brianna. But you know, a few things for individual artists to keep in mind to really contact me or Kathy early on in the process for guidance, especially if you're unsure if you're going to be applying as an emerging artist or a professional. If you have several ideas that you're like wanting to go in, and it's hard for you to kind of narrow down like what you want to do, and we don't want you to like do a little of this, a little of that. Sometimes that's distracting for a panel. So really keep your ideas focused, keep your project focused on one set of on one project essentially. You can always accomplish the next thing with the next grant, right? A well-researched timeline, and a budget is key. So make sure that you're thinking about timelines and goals with your project, and don't just leave everything vague to be like, you know, I want to do this for the good of the arts, and just be like leave it at that. We really want you to kind of drill down and be specific about what you want to accomplish and what you want to get out of it. You know, and how does this really advance your art form? And during a panel review, you know, one of the things we often hear is panelists say is the return on investment of state tax dollars. You know, is this project worthy of state funding to help this artist or help this organization you know, carry out its mission, or you know, how will the community benefit? Even though that individual artists are kind of, you know, more insular and they're working on their own thing, there is a community engagement component to really every project. You know, whether you just show your work online or through social media, that is a community engagement opportunity. So make sure you point those out. And some, you know, some projects are more community engagement forward, so those are always welcome, and we our panelists love seeing those. So again, contact us if you have questions or need any more tips beyond this webinar, and we look forward to talking to you. So with that, I'm going to send us off and say thank you to OAPN for inviting us to share our grant programs. Thanks to Brianna for you know, explaining all those grant programs early on, and everything, all the tips and the grant cycle, and our tips about accessibility. So that's always important. So we are ready for questions if you have them. Jessica, are we getting
Yeah.
any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Brianna and Chaz. This was so helpful. I mean, as you said, as somebody who our organization receives grant funding, and it's just always great to hear this. Writing grants, if it's not your world, it is a challenge. I think me personally, I've learned over the years. I thought going into it that being as brief as possible and to the point was was what you might have wanted, and I have learned that that is not correct. So uh, for anybody here who has not written a grant yet, again, the entire team at the OAC is super helpful. They're always there to answer questions, um, because you're gonna have a lot of questions going into writing a grant. So question wise, we did have one come in on the chat from Carmen. Asked, how often can we reapply for a grant after a successful grant period?
Sure, I can speak on it from organizations and then Chaz for artists. So you can apply year after year. So if you want to come in for Art Start funding every year, that's great. Or operating support, etc. The couple grant programs where we do have restrictions is Arts Next is one. So Arts Next, if you're awarded, you do have to sit out the following year, but then you can come back the following year. But you do have that 1 year sit out period. And then in the Arts Rise grant program, you can get 2 Arts Rise grants in the 2 years in a row, but then that third year is a sit out year. But keep in mind, if you have 2 Arts Rise grants, you can then come in through operating support, and that's what we encourage you to do. But yeah, all the other ones you can come in for capacity building every year, Art Start every year, and of course, operating support. Chaz?
Yeah, for individual artists, you can apply for the project support, the ones, artists with disabilities, artist opportunities. You can only apply to one or the other, but you can receive them every year. You can get one grant per year, essentially. For excellence awards, if after you receive an excellence award, you have to sit out 1 year, and it's usually the next cycle. So it's like you apply in the visual arts year, you're sitting out the writing music, dance year, and then you can apply again in the visual arts year. So you can apply every 2 years, essentially. The traditional arts apprenticeship, you can apply to that one and other grants. They do not, that one doesn't interfere with the funding for other ones.
Great. All right. Wendy asked, what is the contact information for arts education grant opportunities?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah,
I did put the OAC staff link in there.
Okay. Yes. Great.
perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, if you look up the contact information, you'll see it for the arts learning. It's Chiquita Mullins-Lee and Jody Cushings. And yeah, they're a wonderful team, and yeah, they'd be happy to answer any of those arts learning specific questions that you have.
Great. Dominic, he asked, can two completely different entities at the same university apply? He was told only one could get awarded. And if you need a little bit more explanation, Dominic, you can feel free to hop in and
I'm here. So I was told I work at a performing arts venue. And then I was told only like the art school can win something and I can't because we're under the same umbrella, but we're two completely different things. We're putting on shows, we're putting on artists. They're just teaching the kids or not, which is fine, but I was only told one can win. Is that true?
Sure, that's a good question. So for universities, we do allow, if there's multiple departments within a university that want to come in, it is perfectly fine that they each come in as their own department. And we do a special way in our RD system to get you set up. So let's connect offline and we can continue this conversation and get you set up.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dominic.
Hi,
great.
Jess.
Hey, Dominic. Elaine asked, can you say something about the Big Yellow School Bus?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, yes, so the Big Yellow School Bus Program is one of the 3 grants that is housed under our arts learning category, which we did not talk about today, but they're wonderful programs. I encourage you. It was only 45 minutes and we weren't sure if it would be applicable. So I'm glad that you asked about it. So, Big Yellow School Bus is schools are eligible to apply, and basically it funds school field trips to arts destinations. So students can be exposed to the arts in a professional setting. So if they want to visit the art museum or go see a theatrical production, the main thing you have to keep in mind is it can't be something that the students are actually participating like on stage for. So they can't like be bused to go see their school perform. It has to be a professional presenter or a professional artist. And the funding can only be used for transportation costs, but you can request up to $5,000, or I'm sorry, not 5,000, $500 for those transportation costs. There's not a match requirement, and it's a rolling deadline. So you just need to request those funds 8 weeks prior to your field trip date. But yeah, it's a wonderful program. We're accepting applications now for the current school year if you're interested.
Great. Fred asked, is preference given to nonprofits over for-profit organizations?
Sure. So for-profits are actually not eligible for funding through the Ohio Arts Council. Nonprofits are eligible, government entities are eligible, educational organizations like pre-K through 12 schools and colleges. But the main thing about schools is that it can't just involve their students. It has to involve the wider community, the general public as part of the activity. But yes, I'm sorry to say for-profits are not eligible for Ohio Arts Council funding.
All right, great. We've got Johnny. He checked in to ask, just to confirm, if you're receiving sustainability, you are not eligible for Art Start. Is that correct?
Thank you, Johnny. Yes, that is correct. So as a operating support grantee, sustainability grantee, there are some restrictions in terms of what you can apply to. And one of that is Art Start is not an option. So sustainability grantees cannot apply for Art Start funding. And that's usually Art Start is where people are starting to gain that funding history to then become operating support grantee. So we try and keep the operating support grantees out of there.
Great. We're out of questions in the chat. Does anybody have a question on the call? If they want to raise their hand and you can talk directly with Brianna or Chaz. All right. This is your last chance, last opportunity to chat face to face. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I'm gonna just thank you again, Brianna and Chaz, for your time, for the wonderful presentation. Again, this will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. OAPN also hosts monthly professional development sessions, and we are going to release our next few months. We're going to announce those later today. So please check back and keep in touch with the OAC. They are here to help. They are here to help you receive grant funding because they want the arts to succeed. I hope that, you know, throughout over the years, we've really made it an effort to keep OAC within our circle, and they've kept us within theirs because we want to make sure everybody knows how kind they are and just how helpful and resourceful they are to you and to all of us. It is not a scary entity that we should fear. So yeah, so thank you everybody. Again, Wendy just asked, you will all receive an email with the deck slide along with the posted Tuesday talks when it is live sometime tomorrow, if not later tonight. So Brianna, Chaz, if you have anything you want to say to close it out, I'll let you take the floor to end this Tuesday talks.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting us. This was a pleasure. Always like to talk to different people and different people from different backgrounds and different disciplines. So please contact us if you have any questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, APN, and thank you all for joining us today. Look forward to continuing the conversation. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.